At work, I deal with digital certificates quite frequently, and I also get a lot of questions regarding digital certs. So I thought I would put together this screencast to describe how certs work. I'll be talking about key pairs, key stores and trust stores, encryption, and client cert authentication. Key pairs are made up of public keys and private keys. The public key is used for encryption, and it is also used for client cert authentication from the server's perspective. A private key is used for decrypting messages. A private key is also used for client cert authentication from the client's perspective. A key store is used to hold your public-private key pair. A trust store is used to hold your client's public keys. It's also used to hold server public keys if there is a need to communicate with a server over HTTPS. Digital certs are mostly used for encryption. And from the app server's perspective, the app server is going to use a key pair in conjunction with an HTTPS listener to decrypt incoming messages. And from the client's perspective, the public certificate from the app server can be used by a browser or from client tools like SoapUI to encrypt messages. So for this demonstration, I'll be using Firefox as the browser and SoapUI to simulate the client. I'll be using GlassFish to demonstrate how the app server works with certificates. This program is called Keystore Explorer, and it's a nice tool that allows you to view the contents of a key store. This is the GlassFish key store. The file is called keystore.jks. This is a key pair that is generated automatically when GlassFish is first started. Now, this key pair, if you look at the GlassFish administration console, the administration console has a listener, and the listener for HTTPS is port 8181. And if you look at the SSL configuration tab for this listener, it's referencing the same alias, the S1AS alias that is found in the GlassFish key store file. So those two are paired up. Now, if I want to start simulating communication from the browser to the GlassFish server, I have a browser configured pointing to HTTPS, and it's going to port 8181. And if I hit the reload button, this is sending the message to the server, and I get the hello world back. So the communication between the browser and the app server is encrypted due to that key pair found in the keystore.jks file. So that shows basic encryption. I can also show how basic encryption works from a tool called SoapUI, which simulates SOAP messages going back and forth. So this tool is communicating over HTTPS. The machine name is called Linux Mint, and it's listening on that same port 8181. The servlet context is the same. It's the same WAR file deployed, and inside of it I have a web service. So all it does is takes in my name, and it just passes back the hello and then the name that you passed in. So that shows basic encryption. The other thing that digital certificates are used for is client cert authentication. And from the client's perspective, the client, now I'll act as the client name will be Bill. The client has to generate a private key pair of his own, and he's got to export that public key, and then the app server has to import that public key into its trust store. So I've already generated that key pair using Keystore Explorer, and the Keystore file, I called it Bill, and the name of the key pair is also called Bill, and I exported it using Keystore Explorer, the public part, just by clicking on the PEM, and that basically is your public key. And you only want to give out your public key. You'd never want to give out your private key. So that file is stored on my local drive, and what I can do in order to get client cert authentication to work with GlassFish is check this box on the SSL listener, and this will have everything going to port 8181. It will require any client to have a public key inserted in the GlassFish trust store, which is called the CA Certs file. Now this CA Certs file, it has all the public keys. Mostly these are certificate authority keys, but you can also add client public certs to it to get client cert authentication to work. So let me do a test here from SoapUI. So now that I have that checkbox enabled, 8181 should require this client to have a public cert, and I don't have one registered yet. I hit the play button and I get this error, and this error basically means that there's no public key installed on the server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the GlassFish Trust Store, which is CA Certs, and I'm going to import the public key, which is I exported it earlier from the bill.jks key store. I'm going to import it. And the alias name, or the cert alias name is Bill. Let's click OK. Now that's been added. So Bill is in there. Now I actually need to restart the app server to get that cert to get picked up. So I'll go ahead and restart the domain. Okay, the domain has been restarted. From the client, I have to reference my key store, the Bill key store. And I can do that in SoapUI by going to Preferences and going to SSL. And I think it's already set. I'm just going to double check that the bill.jks is checked and the password has already been set. Now it didn't work before because the public key was not in the trust store. Now it is, and I should get the hello Bill response back. And that shows how client cert authentication works. So if we go back to our slides, that covers client cert authentication. So these are some simple rules to live by. If you go by these rules, I think you'll be in good shape with digital certificates. One rule is never give out that private key. If someone gets a hold of that private key, they can decrypt any traffic coming to your server. They can also do a man-in-the-middle of attack, and they can act as you if someone is using client cert authentication. Don't accept a key pair that you didn't create. If someone created a key pair for you, that means that they actually have your private key. So you want to generate your private key, and that can be generated in Keystore Explorer. So if I'm in here in Keystore Explorer, I can actually generate a key just by clicking on that key, and it'll generate the key pair. There's some steps you have to go through, but you want to do that on your client side. You don't want to accept the outside key pair. Another rule is change the password on the key store. In GlassFish, the password is actually the master password. I'm not sure what it is in other app servers like JBoss or Tomcat, but you would want to protect that, because if somebody got a hold of that key store, if there was a secure password, they shouldn't be able to get access to the private key. When using client cert authentication, only accept certs from clients you trust when using client cert authentication. And that's when you add that client cert to your trust store, that basically means that person is allowed in, so you wouldn't want to just accept certs from anybody. Only the clients that you deem worthy of that service.